Hi everyone, welcome back to Valley View Flower Farm. It's time for a quick October tour of the flower patch, focusing on perennials, so come along. Perennials are my mainstay on the flower farm due to our climatic conditions that we find ourselves in rural New South Wales. They're hardy for the frost and they tolerate the dry. So I thought I'd show you some of my favourites. When I talk about perennials on the flower farm, I include such things as bulbs and short-lived perennials, which other people may class as annuals. But I'll just show you some of my favourites and where they're up to at the moment. So here we have the Dutch iris, and it's just about finished now. Some of these irises here are doubles on the one stem, so I haven't been cutting those, and I have had a little bit of thrip damage, which I'll show you in a minute. But for me, Dutch iris is classed as a perennial because I leave it in the ground and it just comes back year after year. Another good one is the Achillea, or the granny's bonnet, and I interplant Achillea with a few different things, which I'll show you through the video. And these are in their second year. This is Rose Barlow, and it's a nice double formed columbine. We also have some Nigella there, but for me that is an annual and comes back by seed. So in this section here you can see some of my yellow Dutch iris and my white ones have been affected by thrip damage. So these didn't open properly. Another perennial that I have interplanted and in a few spots in the garden is the alliums, with this variety being Purple Rain. Something that I class as a perennial is feverfew. It comes back fairly reliably each year. I have a few plants die off, but it's easily struck by cuttings. So for me, I class this as a perennial, and this is just about to come out into flower. Something that I thought would perennialise in my garden, which hasn't, is the straw flower. So straw flower did not come back reliably after winter. A lot of the old straw flower plants rotted over that winter period. So these ones here have been grown by seed to replace those. Another interesting turn of events is the Craspedia or billy balls. So this bigger plant here is a second year flowering form, and these smaller plants here are ones that I overwintered, or I started over the winter period. And I think the first year flowering Craspedia are doing a lot better. The stems look a lot better. And then the second year flowering Craspedia. So that's interesting. I might try and divide them next year and see how they go, whether that rejuvenates them and they perform a little better on the division. These anemones here, I class these as perennial because I will be collecting the bulbs or the corms and replanting them next year. These are slowly getting taller over the season, and obviously I need to give these all a good cut back. I only cut them back 2 weeks ago and they're already at a stage where they need cutting back again. You can also tell the age of the flowers fairly reliably by the distance of the cuff around the flower to the actual flower head. So you can see that this is a relatively new bloom. There's not a big space here between the flower and this leafy cuff, whereas this one is slightly older because that's more elongated. This is another planting of feverfew that I have overwintered, and it's getting quite tall now. It's probably around the 4-foot mark, and some smaller ones at the back which I planted later. A great perennial for me is of course Achillea the pearl. It's a lot better in its second year compared to its first year. The stems are significantly taller, so I'm going to get longer stems for cutting. They're standing up a lot better, and the plant looks like it's performing overall a lot better than it did in its first year, even though it did flower in its first year. And of course there's the common yarrow. This is just stuff that I've grown from seed, although I do prefer the proper perennial yarrow that doesn't self-seed, it just grows by rhizome. That's my preferred planting, but I keep them all in the one bed so I don't have to worry about the Achillea or the yarrow spreading everywhere. I hope you can hear the birds in the trees just behind me. They're parrots. I think they've got a few mating in some of the tree hollows up behind the farm there. In this bed though, we have some sea holly and we have some globe thistle, and they will be flowering hopefully this year. We also have some campanula with some Canterbury bells, and even though these are a biennial, this is their second year. I actually left them in the ground. They did flower last year, but you can already see their long spikes on the campanula. So I'd say that's about 2 foot tall, these spikes. So more flowers in this second year for this perennial, or biennial I should say, than there were in the first year. Okay, for something a little bit disgusting, I don't know about anybody else, but I keep these buckets around the garden to collect all my weeds. And as you can see, it's just full of flies because these weeds are rotting down into the water. And I actually strain those off and use that watered down as a fertilizer for my plants. But moving along from that, I have here some Veronica. This is the second year for this Veronica, and again, this, even though it flowered in the first year, the stems weren't really long enough for bouquets, but you can see now that this is quite a bit taller, so these stems, when in flower, will be perfect for bouquets for this perennial in its second year. So I have lots and lots and lots of campanulas in the garden, and this one is a particular favourite of mine. This is a purple flowering variety, and I'll put the name on the screen. And this has really nice long stems, and it flowers all the way up the stem, and it makes for an excellent long-lasting cut flower. I will be propagating this and planting more. This is my perennial experimental bed where I have planted quite a few different perennials, and most of them campanulas. A couple of things that have come up from last year. But this is my opportunity to look at how they perform as a cut flower, and if I like them, I will take cuttings and put more in next year. This is the peony bed. These are first year peonies. They went in autumn and winter just past. So I've already picked a coral charm. I have disbudded most of them, but I have left a few on of different varieties that I haven't had a chance to be exposed to for flowering. So I think that one is a coral charm. These magnificent peonies are from Gateforth Peonies in Tasmania, and they've just taken off. Absolutely beautiful. I also treat my liliums as a perennial because I leave them in the ground undisturbed, and I do interplant this time with larkspur. I find that works well. I've got larkspur coming up everywhere, and I don't really want to dedicate a whole bed to larkspur, so I find this arrangement between the liliums and the larkspur works quite well. I have some purple loosestrife coming up here. This didn't return as well as I would have liked over winter. I lost a few plants. I've got one nice healthy plant though, and the stems again a lot taller than they were in the first year of flowering. Another favourite of mine, of course, is the Cafe Cream perennial foxgloves, and I have a few more different types of perennial foxgloves in seed trays at the moment because I just love these. These have come back wonderfully. Again, the stem's a lot taller than I had for their first year, so looking forward to picking off these fairly soon. And who doesn't love ranunculus? And the ranunculus have done really well this season. I have started deadheading these. You can see from my wheelbarrow that's half full of flower heads. I have quite a few markets coming up and I want to prolong the flowering as long as possible. These yellow ones have been absolutely amazing. The stems are a little on the thin side, but other than that, they are perfect. I also have the Highline Marshmallow, and I cannot recommend this one more. It's a bit patchy because I've just started deadheading everything, but the number of petals and the form of Highline Marshmallow is absolutely beautiful. The height is great, the stem thickness is great. They're just starting to thin down now with stem thickness, but otherwise they've been fantastic. And if you watched any of my other videos, you will know that I had some issues early on with my ranunculus when planting from plugs. A lot of them did appear to die off, but then after the weather started to cool down over winter, a lot of those little seedling plugs did come back, and that's these plants here, and they have flowered, and I've got a great mix of beautiful colours here, and that's just been fantastic. I've really enjoyed them. So a perennial for me, I will dig these up at the end of the season and save the corms and reuse again for next year. I do have another 4 trays, 288 cell trays coming for next year to add a few different colour varieties, but I'll go down and I'll show you these mauve ones. On the way, this is the Morpho Delphinium, and hopefully that is a bit of a perennial also. This is just first year for me, and I grew these by plug. I've got 2 lots. I think I've got a white and a blue, or a pink and a blue, I'm not quite sure. So probably the ones I had the most problem with were the mauve flowering variety and the pastels. So I'm ordering pastels again to give them another go, and I've also ordered some salmon, so just to add to the colour selection. So these ones here are just really beautiful. They're not only that maroon colour, but the colour on the petals gives it a real antique look, and I just love these. These are really beautiful. So here we have some more liliums, again interplanted with some larkspur, and there is actually, not that you can see it, there is a rose in there, and a clematis, which is just peeking its head through. So these liliums I've interplanted with Honesty. Not keeping them for the flower, just more for the seeds. So you can see that they've already starting to produce the seed pods. I'm surprised how quickly they produce the seed pods after they produce the flowers. It's quite rapid. This is another perennial that I thought I would give another year trial to, and I'm glad I did. This is a Campanula, so that purple Campanula that I showed you, this is the white variety. This is called Crown of Snow, and I grew this by seed. And last year I would have had 1 or 2 flowers on the Crown of Snow, and they're way too short to pick. And this year I have got, I'd say they're about 2 foot tall now. They make beautiful long-lasting cut flowers, easy to grow from seed. But yes, it's taken 2 years or more to get the stem length that is required. So it's worth having a little bit of patience when it comes to cut flower perennial varieties. Delphiniums are a big favourite of mine, and I don't have near as many as I would like. I have a few here that I grew from seed, And last year these performed all year. They just flowered on and off all year. And you know, as a spike element in a bouquet and as a blue coloured flower, I don't think you can go past these. They're absolutely beautiful. I only pick them, this is probably at the stage that I would pick them, where I've got 1 or 2 flowers open, and I'll let the rest flower in the vase. You just need to make sure you hydrate them properly, otherwise they can flop, but you can always just cut the top out if you need to. A little patch here of granny's bonnets. These are actually interplanted between some liliums. I think these are Asiatic. This section in here is my perennial garden, where I grow them in a bed-like fashion, like a garden. And excuse, I need to mow. I haven't mowed. I've been a little bit busy, but everything's just now starting to come out. So here we have some second year peonies, which are looking really healthy. So this here is another Veronica, and it's a blue flowering one, and last year it probably would have been 1/3 of the height. So this is it in its second year. These are the Canary Island Foxgloves or Digiplex, and last year I would have been able to cut 6 stems off each plant. As you can see this year, a lot more stems to pick from. So it just goes to show what a difference the old adage is regarding perennials. First year they sleep, second year they creep, and third year they leap. So also patience, talking of patience, here is liliums. I planted probably 6 liliums here. Now look how many liliums I have coming up. They've just multiplied. So you don't need to buy heaps of things and spend heaps of money if you just have a little bit of patience, and things naturally multiply. So this peony here is called Class Act, and I'm not quite sure what's going on with the buds, whether this is normal. See how they look cabbagey? And I'm not sure whether that's because we've had some unusual late frosts. Even though our frost risk ends on the 1st of November, we've had some pretty savage late ones. So I'm not sure whether that's a result of that or whether that's normal for this peony. If anyone knows, please let me know. One of the things I absolutely love about growing things from seed is when I get situations like this plant, it looks to me like a scabiosa. And if you can see the leaves, they're highly divided. And it's as tall as me, so it's nearly 5 foot tall. And it just has these beautiful long arching stems. Like, even if it's not a good cut flower, how beautiful would a drift of this look in the back of your garden border? So excuse all the building noises. My husband's making, he makes garden ornaments and things. Well, not ornaments, garden supports, obelisks and things, and he's in the shed there making, we've got some markets coming up and I'll go show you what he makes. But yeah, so that's what all the noise is. And this is an Angelica. I'm not sure if it's a good cut flower, but the pollinators certainly like it. It does like to be watered. It'll soon flop if I don't water it enough, but it's been certainly interesting to grow in the garden. So down here is a new section that we've put in. So along this area here, this is the edge of the flower farm where my husband put in a new fence. So we've had so much trouble with the cattle, and there's an electric fence on the other side. So much trouble with the cattle sticking their head over and munching on my plants. So I've got an array of South African and Australian natives in this area. They're just tube stocks, so they'll take a while to establish. But I've extended this garden along the back of the fence. It's now, well, 90% done. I haven't got plants in every section, but I'll just show you what we have done. You can see the magpies. The magpies are fighting in the paddock. I've got some peonies just here. Just they've got them end of season sale, so I just stuck them there. But as for the rest of it, it is mostly dahlias. And I've put the name of each dahlia that I have. I think I've only got a couple there. I don't know what they are. And they're just starting to come up now. So for me, I leave dahlias in the ground, so I consider them to be perennials. They will overwinter here for us, as long as you have an area that is elevated and free draining. So these beds I've made up along here, I have built them up so that they've got good drainage, because this is the lowest section of the flower farm. I also have a number of roses, and I've named the roses on just cattle tags so I can remember what's what. It's the same. I do like things to be balanced, so it's the same roses on this side and the same roses on the other side of this gate. And these are all just different. We've got Claire Austin and a vintage, which is a nice brownie, beigey coloured rose, Heaven Sent, Honey Dijon, another nice, I suppose you could say it's a brownie coloured orangey rose. So the same again on the other side, and then on each side of the gate post I have a clematis. Some of these are climbing roses, so some will help cover this fence. So that's vintage there. So you can see what I mean by that brownie coloured, washed out colour that you get with these new variety of roses. They're really pretty. So I've extended this all the way around the edge of the flower farm, and all along this section here is all dahlias. And I think I've got another, I don't know, maybe 20 more dahlias to come, and I have a few to dig out of the old beds where I had them before. And the idea is to plant the dahlias along the back. This is just a raised section. I've got some natives in behind, and up here is the South African natives as well. But in this bed here, and if I step back a bit, it's hard with the bobcat in the way, but this is a bit of a swoop, and then I'm going to put some edging in front and fill that with chip and put some chairs there so people can sit in this section, and behind them will be an array of dahlias. So all along this curve here and this raised section of garden bed will be dahlias, where people can cut them or they can get their photo taken in amongst them, and then it's just a beautiful backdrop to cover up some of this fence here. So this is just the same area with a view from the other side. So there's the swoop in there, and that's where the rest of the dahlias will go. So this is Penelope Grey. This is a new cat. And this section here, this is my trusty compost heap. And this section here, it's hard to get shade in a newly formed garden, so I'm using the fact that I've got this Hebel wall here, and it'll cast afternoon shade just on this little section here. And in here I've got some hydrangeas, only two and some lupins and some natives, Perenials, which appreciate a little bit of shade. And then behind that is a new section of garden, which is another perennial landscaped area of cut flower varieties. So these are my second year roses lining the front fence of the flower farm. They're looking really good this year. On the other side, I'll just sweep around slowly. On the other side, I did lose 3 or 4. They got a little bit too wet. You can see there's a hole there. So I'll need to fix the drainage up and replace them at some stage. So for context, what we're hoping to achieve here is a bit of a U-pick situation, and this is the front of our property. Obviously this is just the fenced off house yard, and as you can see that side looks okay, but then when we get to the utilitarian side where all the farming equipment is and the power pole, we need to do some softening and some landscaping. So that is the whole idea about this section of the garden and flower farm. So for context, that's just looking the other way. That is the entrance road. It's about 300 acres here where we are. So with that all in mind, you can see why this little section here, although it doesn't look like much at the moment, is so important to get the plants up and established. This section is just full of cut flower varieties of natives and of perennials, and a few annuals, not many annuals. This is an example of what my husband makes for the markets. They're obelisks. I'll try and put in a better picture. It's hard in the shed with everything else in here. But he makes tall ones. How tall are these, Mike?
2 metres.
About 2 metres, and then smaller ones, 1 metre high, suitable for pots or for smaller growing climbers. And then we've got, these are individual stem supports, and then perennial hoops to hold up floppy perennials. And these are another thing that we make for the markets. They're tea light holders, and they're made out of glass insulators, and you just stick them in the garden and put a candle in the top, just something different. So something to supplement what I do when I sell my flowers. So there you have it, a bit of a tour of the flower farm with a focus on perennials this time in October, and just a bit of a glimpse of what else we're working on the flower farm, and the little projects that Michael contributes to when we go to the farmers markets, just for a bit of extra. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please let me know. If you have any suggestions, please let me know. But thank you everyone for watching. I really do appreciate it. Thanks. Until next time. Bye.